What's up, guys? Welcome back to Savage Rounds with Xavier. Today for you, we're doing a UFC 294 mini review, and we're going to do matchmaking, which will be the majority of this. We had no UFC last week, but we're right back into it this week with UFC Sao Paulo. Gelton Almeida taking on Derek Lewis. It's going to be an interesting one. But let's talk about these fights before we get into that. 10-1 and 2 on the week. I forgot to put my little check marks, but we hit on Shara Dudakova, missed on Wood, even though there probably should have been some points taken away by Naimov. He was grabbing the gloves bad, grabbing the fence, a lot of fouls, no points taken. Hit on Breeden, Dumas, ended up with a no contest between Basharat and Henry, which was unfortunate. Peak, Makhachev, Said Nurmagomedov, Ali Skarov, another no contest between Ankalaev and Walker, which probably should have been a DQ, and Walker should have gotten the win. It was the same kind of deal as Peter versus Aljo, but I don't know what the reason was for not going DQ versus going no contest. It's kind of weird because they were very similar situations, but it is what it is. Chimaev over Usman and Islam over Volk. Any of these fights? So Shara Magomedov, he looked pretty solid, I will say. I thought he was going to be able to find the knockout. His kicks look really dynamic. He barely used his hands in that fight, which obviously he's a primary kicker. The kickboxing is fantastic. The leg dexterity is crazy. But against some of these higher level guys, and not to say Bruno Silva isn't higher level, they obviously tossed him in there with somebody very good right away because they know how good he can be. But the striking defense as a whole, for sure, the lack of use of hands, and the wrestling defense needs to improve quite a bit. He was having trouble getting off of his back, and in the second and third round, he really wasn't able to stop any takedowns, so that was a big problem there. The Mike Breeden fight was wild. Jubilee looked like he was cruising, and then the literal dog came out of Breeden in that third round. He started barking. He was talking mad shit. He was yelling at Jubilee. And the forward pressure and the aggression and the craziness kind of just broke Jubilee. The cardio may have failed him there as well, but I don't know if it was the pressure or just a combination of everything. Breeden went out there and found the knockout in the third round, which was crazy. I saw a lot of people had, not a lot, but a few people I follow and talk to had Breeden third round KO tickets, which was crazy. Really good bet. Would have loved to see the Basharat-Henry fight end up playing out. The first round was close. I thought Basharat won it, but we end up with the nut kick. Basharat says it wasn't. There's not an angle that shows it was or it wasn't, so it's hard to say, but with the way Victor Henry reacted, I'd be hard-pressed to say he was faking it, but I wasn't in there. I don't know. I thought Basharat won the first round, but it was a close round. It would have been very interesting to see how the rest of the fight went. Yaya versus Peak was not the violence fest everybody thought it was. Somehow we ended up going to decision. Trevor Peak looked a lot more calm. He brought out the wrestling, which was kind of funny. He got the win. Very different look to a Trevor Peak performance than we're used to, but he got it done. Did what he needed to do. I don't know why that was so hard for me to say. Makhachev down on the scorecards going into the third round, which kind of shocked me. I thought Makhachev won the second round. The first round, I understand giving to Tim Elliott, but I thought Makhachev won the second round. So seeing him probably going to lose if that fight went to decision was crazy. He ended up sinking in that third round submission regardless. Me and some of the boys had Makhachev sub tickets, so that was pretty cool to see, especially going into that third round. I wish I played the third because I told everyone, all my friends that were over, that it was going to be second or third round. I probably should have played it, but it is what it is. Said, I literally, if you go back and watch the breakdown, I broke that down exactly how it was going to go. Gafarov swings wild. He leaves his head wide open for guillotines when he shoots. He was just fighting guys that couldn't finish the guillotines in his previous two fights on Contender Series and his one in the UFC. Did he have? No, Naimov had the one. I can't even remember. I can never remember between Naimov and Gafarov, but watching tape, Gafarov left his neck out. You don't leave your neck out versus Said. If he's got anything that he's fantastic at, it's a guillotine. You're not getting out of that. Exactly how I thought it was going to go. He gets the first round sub. Ali Skarov, same. He ran through Warley Alvarez. Everybody knew on short notice up a weight class that was going to be it was always going to be a tough ask for Warley. Ankalaev Walker, Ankalaev threw the most blatant knee to a downed opponent in the head. So that was super weird. I don't know why he did it. The ref asks Johnny Walker where they are. He says the desert, which isn't wrong, but it probably wasn't what the doctor was looking for. So they end up going no contest. Probably should have been a DQ. I don't see what was different between that and the Peter Yan Aljo situation. So kind of weird. Saved some of the boys' tickets, though. I can't lie. The no contest, because if that was a DQ and Walker got the win, some people would have gone home feeling sad, but it is what it is. Chimaev over Usman, the first round. I think a lot of people were surprised how easily he was able to hold Usman down. He thought he broke his wrist or his hand, but it came out a few days ago, not too long ago now, that he tore a ligament in his wrist or his hand. I can't remember where exactly it was, but a ligament's torn in that first round, so he really wasn't able to grapple and throw that right hand like he wanted to. He was still throwing it, but it was more just big overhands trying to sleep Usman. But yeah, I think probably his cardio looked fine. Everybody was saying he looked like he was tired. I didn't think so. It looked like he was pacing himself or he was hurt, and it ended up probably being a mix of both since he was hurt. I think he probably goes out there and wrestles pretty well in the second round if that ligament isn't torn, and because he was able to get him down in the third round again. Good performance from Chimaev. I do want to see that Paulo Costa fight still, though. I know Dana was calling for the title shot for whoever wins this, but I think there's probably going to be a reconsideration. Dricus is still in line. Skipping Dricus at this point would be insane, I feel like. So I'd love to see the Chimaev-Paulo fight get remade, which I'll talk about in a second. And then Makhachev-Volk. I didn't think this fight was going to go the distance this time. But that's not the knockout I saw happening. I picked Islam. I thought it was going to be a ground and pound kind of situation. I didn't think Volk would be able to go off the couch as long this time, or he was going to go aggressive knowing he's coming off the couch, and so that would get him caught. But he ends up just getting caught with a sweet head kick in the first round. Islam threw it perfectly. It was pretty sick. And yeah, it ended up being maybe not the card everybody was hoping it would be, but a lot of people saying it was a bad card. It wasn't a bad card. It didn't live up to the expectations everybody thought it would. Still a decent card. It was fun. 10-1-2, like I said, the 2-0 contests, unfortunately. Moving us to 28-2, 282, 153, and 11. And then we hit Savage Rounds Parlay. You can see 17 and 14 plus 4.17 units. We finally break the little 4-week streak we were on of awful luck of people getting injured, like Fiziev blowing his knee out, throwing a kick. What can you do about that? There are some tough losses in that 4-week streak, but we're back on track, still positive, up 4 units. This is what we went with, Dudakova and Saeed. And this was probably, like, in terms of favorite, this was you can't call it a favorite parlay, but like the odds were the worst that we've played so far. This was probably the first that wasn't in the plus money, and we did something different than we usually do too. We did 1.5 units if you followed. It was 1.5 units this time. We hit, moves us up to plus 4.17. The win streak can start over. We got to beat 5. I know we can. But yeah, let's get into matchmaking. We're going Shara, Rodriguez, Trevor Peak, Makhachev, Saeed, Ikram, Kamaru, Khamzat, and then the 2 champions, Alexander Volkanovski and Islam Makhachev. There are some very obvious matchups, so some of them we might kind of fly through, but there are some fun ones as well. Shara Magomedov, his first UFC fight, the debut, looked good. I think a lot of people thought he was going to be able to find the finish, and there was some wrestling question marks to be asked. Obviously, giving him Bruno Silva, they think relatively highly of him. They like him. So it wasn't like they were throwing him in there against a guy he would easily beat. They were giving him a tough challenge. They know what he is. So I find them hard-pressed to give him somebody at the bottom of the rankings, outside of the rankings. So I'm kind of going to go prediction mode too, so you'll know how I'm thinking for predictions tomorrow. I think Armen Petrosyan is going to be able to beat Rodolfo Vieira. I'd love to see this fight afterwards. This would be a really fun fight, a great kickboxing fight. we wouldn't see grappling, which obviously we still need to see Shara up against grappling. But that will come. He'll work on it. I think this would just kind of, if Petrosyan wins, I feel like this kind of lines them up for a good fight. If not, Gregory Rodriguez is still kind of waiting in the background, looking for a fight. He's been calling for it on Instagram and Twitter. You saw him sparring with Alex Pereira for Pereira's upcoming fight versus Jerry Prochko, which I cannot wait for. MSG, November 11th. So I think it's one of these two guys. You go Arman Petrosyan or Gregory. Gregory would pose a bit more of an all-around threat, but we know how good Arman's kickboxing is. So I'd love to see either one of these fights get made for Shara next. Next up, Cedriquez. He's now on 2-fight win streak. Cody Brundage and obviously this last fight over Abu. So he's 2-1 in the UFC. Also a win on Contender Series. Not doing too bad so far, but obviously, he's not like some super high-level prospect. He's still got a lot of growing to do. He's definitely a younger guy. There's no reason to, on a 2-fight win streak, give him anybody insane. So just kind of around the same level, let him build his win streak, get better. Puna is like 1-3 in his last 4, but 3-3 in the UFC. He's been in there with some good guys. He always ends up losing to them. His last one against Kopylov, he got beat up pretty bad. So maybe he bounces back here. Or I think this is a good spot to see really how good Cedriquez is. And not see how good he is, but see kind of what level he's at. Because Puna's always able to beat the guys that aren't that step above. But the guys that are that like lower level, he's always able to knock out. Or he's been able to knock out so far in the UFC. So I think this could be kind of a real indicator of where Cedriquez is at the moment. Next up, Trevor Peek. There's no surprises what I'm going to say here. Last Terrence McKinney fight, I called for it. This Trevor Peek fight, I'm calling for it. They could be anywhere in their careers. I will call for this fight. It has to happen. This is one of the, if you're a soccer fan or you're on soccer Twitter, this is like a streets won't forget fight. There's nothing to say about it. It has to happen. Pure violence. Unless Trevor Peek is a new reformed man who likes to wrestle now. I don't know. But this fight, if all goes to plan in my head, it screams banger. Next up, Makhachev. He moves up. I believe he's 11th in the rankings now, or 10th maybe. Him and Tim Elliott flipped. They just switched spots. Tim Elliott was one place above him, so he just jumps Tim Elliott. Obviously, they're going to try and look to get him in the top 10. It's going to be maybe tough to get him a fight because he seems to have had trouble with fights before, but Nicolau, number 6 rank right now. He was on a good streak, and he's coming off of a TKO or knockout loss to Brandon Royval, who's going to be fighting Pantoja for the title pretty soon. So they could have been in very different positions if Nicolau had got the win, but here we are. This would be a big, big test for Makhachev. Obviously, his hardest fight. Tim Elliott was a step above what he'd fought before. Nicolau is that step above Tim Elliott, so this would really show how good Makhachev is. If he gets this one done like he's been doing, he could be future champion material for real. It would be a sick fight, and if Nicolau's able to get it, that is a good kind of hype train to steal. You beat I almost said rookie, you beat a good guy coming up the rankings, good prospect, and that's just a good name to have on your record to kind of build off of a loss, get that win, and try and build back towards the title for him if he can't get it done. But whoever wins this would be a sick fight. Next up, Saeed. He enters back into the rankings. He was in the rankings, lost to Jonathan Martinez. Has to fight Gafarov, and he gets the win, and now he's back in the rankings. I'm not sure how beating Gafarov gets you into the rankings, but here we are. This division, 135 pounds, the bantamweight division, is so log-jammed. You saw it last matchmaking video when I talked about Jonathan Martinez. It's hard to find matchups for any of these guys in the rankings because it is so log-jammed. There are matchups made. Figgy's coming in, so Rob Font's taking it. There's a lot of stuff. A fight coming up, though, who are just a couple ranks above these guys, or above Saeed, or one of them is. Ricky Simone's taking on Mario Bautista soon. It'll be Bautista's first ranked opponent, so it'll be interesting to see who gets this win, but I'd love to see Saeed fight the winner. Obviously, if Ricky gets the win, he's coming off of, I believe he just fought Song. Did he lose to Song? That's who he lost last to, I believe. I don't know why, I can't remember. I think he lost to Song. So if he beats somebody outside the rankings, obviously he's not going to get like some top 10 guy. He's going to have to fight Saeed. And if Mario Bautista wins, I think this would be a good first fight to introduce him to the rankings. And Saeed coming off of a loss to a ranked opponent and then beating Gafurov, you just can't shoot him up high, give him a high-ranked opponent. So I think this makes a lot of sense for kind of how jammed the division is and where these guys are at the moment. Next up, Ikram Aliskerov. Kind of a weird one. He was supposed to fight Paulo Costa, who was like number 6 in 185 after his first fight against Phil Hawes. And then he got match made versus Nasruddin. That fell out, and he got Wardley. So obviously they want him in the rankings. You just remake the Nasruddin Imavov fight. I think it makes the most sense, to be honest. The Khamzat got moved into the rankings at number 9, I believe. So a lot of these guys that are below 9 dropped a spot. And I mean, they had it made already. They obviously want Iskarov fighting inside the rankings quick. So let's just get this one done. It was made already. Do it again. And Kamaru Usman, this one is an interesting one. He's got a few options. I don't really know if he wants to stay at 170 pounds or permanently be at 185, so I did kind of matchmaking for both. If he is going back down to 170 pounds welterweight, I'd love to see him fight the winner of Shavkat and Stephen Thompson, which is probably going to end up being Shavkat. That is a very tough matchup for Stephen Thompson, but if he can get it done, I think the fight versus Kamaru would be sick, and also Shavkat, also a sick fight with Kamaru. We just saw how good he can be against Khamzat Chimaev. Even though he didn't win, it was a very good showing up at 185 off the couch on short notice. Jorge said he saw him a few days before the fight got announced out at 4 a.m. So obviously the dude's a dog. He's still got it in him even after the title fight loss, 2 of them. I think this would be a sick fight to make. If he is planning to stay at 185 pounds, I think you go with Rob Whittaker. They were talking about Kamaru Usman and Chimaev for the title. For whoever wins gets the title, so obviously. And I mean, Chimaev is one of the greatest welterweights. Usman's one of the greatest welterweights of all time. He's the number 1 ranked welterweight right now. They're obviously not going to give him some below top 10 ranked guy. And I just think this would be a sick fight. They're kind of guys in the same position. Both have been champions. Obviously, Whittaker didn't have the same reign Usman did, but both have been champions. Rob's had trouble with Israel Adesanya's, lost to him twice. Usman lost twice to Leon. They're both kind of in that limbo spot in their division. I think if Usman decides to stay at 185 pounds, this is the fight to make. Next up, Chimaev. This is one of those ones that it's obvious. You have to do it. I talked about it a little bit already. Paulo Costa. Just remake this one. It was made already. Chimaev enters the 185-pound rankings at number 9. Paulo Costa, I believe, is 6, so this would just kind of make sense for where they are. Whoever wins gets a top 5 opponent, maybe a title shot if Dricus has already fought by then. Who knows, but this is obviously the fight to make. There are still questions to be asked. These guys don't like each other, and it would be just a sick fight. And then these last two, kind of the same thing. They're fights that are almost already, like they make themselves. This one, Ilia Topuria, they want it for February. I don't know if Volk's going to be ready. If he is, awesome. I hope it's not too early, because if anybody is going to go out there and sleep Volkanovski, it could be Ilia Topuria. The dude has some very slick boxing, very well-rounded, and big power for the division, so hopefully he's not too rattled, Volk, and hopefully this isn't coming back too early, because it could be bad. You don't want to see him get knocked out bad twice in a row, but if he is good to go, like there's no issues, this isn't too early, this is going to be an absolute banger, a war of a fight, and there's not much else to say. I can't wait to see this when it does happen. And Oliveira, I gave away who I said. I mean, it's obvious though. For Islam, he was supposed to fight Oliveira. Short notice, he gets the cut. You can't skip over Oliveira. I would personally love to see Islam Gaethje, but you have to go with Oliveira. He was next in line regardless. He just beat probably the number 1 contender at the time, Beneil. That's weird to say, but at the time, it felt like Beneil was next up with all the wins he had for his win streak, and it felt like it was building for him to get a title shot, but Oliveira stopped it. And yeah, it was made already. It was supposed to happen. You got to remake it. It's the rematch. I have a hard time seeing how it goes a different way than it did the first time, unless Oliveira can catch him on the feet. Anything can happen. It is a fight, but I tend to lean Islam pretty heavily for this one again. But yeah, UFC 294. It was a fun one. Maybe a little underwhelming for the hype it had, but it was there were some sick knockouts and some pretty good fights on the card. This upcoming weekend, we've got the big fellas throwing down in Sao Paulo. Gelton Almeida taking on Derek Lewis, who's just caught going 136 and a 50. It's not going to affect the fight. He's still already in Brazil. We're good to go. But yeah, I'll have this predictions bets video out tomorrow. New Savage Rounds parlay. Hopefully we can kind of build the streak back to what it was. Even though we're still positive, we're not down by any means, but that was a rough 4 weeks. I want to get the streak back for sure. Drop a like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace.